Yep, we're recording. All right. Yay! Welcome to the Cassie Rachel Show. No, I'm kidding. All right. Welcome, Cassie. Thank you for agreeing to do this with me.
Absolutely.
Super excited to have you be a part of this collaboration I'm working on.
It sounds like
So,
a very cool initiative.
thank you. I appreciate that. Start off with 21 questions and we'll go from there.
I'm ready. I'm
All
ready.
right. All right. Snail mail or electronic?
Electronic.
When I say Minnesota State Fair, you say.
Corn dogs.
I was expecting. I thought you were going to say cheese curds, to be completely honest. West or East Coast?
West Coast.
Plane or.
California. West Coast, Best Coast.
Plane or train?
Plane.
Plane, okay. Teacher or student?
Ideally, there would not be that much of a difference.
Okay. Best coffee you've ever had?
Oh, Jesus. Okay, so I have an entire really pretentious rating system that I've created. It's entirely subjective because I created it. And it goes from 1 to 5, 1 being the best and 5 being like you would never ever drink this coffee.
Okay.
Number ones. The number one that I think really stands out is pretty much any coffee from Onyx Coffee Lab in Springdale, Arkansas.
Okay.
Magic.
Okay.
Magic.
I honestly thought you would say either something from Europe or the Blue Bottle in San Francisco.
Now, Blue Bottle is maybe a 2.5. Whole rating system. I'm super pretentious about coffee nowadays.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
But Onyx, so good.
Okay.
So good.
Noted.
They're lovely people, too.
Ocean or lake?
Ocean. Sorry,
First,
Minnesota.
hey, I would say the same exact thing. And
Alright,
that's first job on the books.
First what?
First job on the books.
It was at a small town local pharmacy. And I was a cashier.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Probably.
If it was downtown, you know where?
Yeah.
Oh, we literally worked right across the street from each other then. Because I was right across the street at the grocery store.
I was at the grocery store a year later. Small town Minnesota for you.
Yeah.
Not even small, but yeah.
Do you have a word for 2018
Yes.
that you've picked out? Okay, what is it?
It's becoming.
Become. Okay, all right. The last time you were starstruck?
Oh God. Hard. Oh no, it's not. Okay. I was like, it's here. It's percolating. So I went to the SANS European Security Awareness Summit in London in December, and the first speaker was the most amazing, enigmatic, hilarious Dr. Jessica Barker, and she owns a firm called Redacted? Something Redacted? Now I'm, of course, blanking on it. She was fantastic. She had really great points. She had innovative content. She was hilarious. She was eloquent, smart, witty, amazing. And then afterwards, she came up to after the conference, she came up to my co-presenter and I, and she was like, I just loved your workshop. And I was like, it was great.
Okay, cool. This one's kind of a weird one, but considering where you've lived, the question is rush hour or stop signs?
Okay, being where I live now and the rush hour we have here, I will take any amount of stop signs.
Okay.
Any amount. I'll take stop signs in Minnesota where everyone hesitates for 5 minutes. I'm like, you go, no, you go, no, you go. Oh, please, no.
Love the passive aggressiveness, right?
No, please, you go. Where'd you go?
City or country?
City.
Beer or wine?
Neither. I don't drink.
I seriously thought you would say beer. Okay. Morning person or night owl?
Oh God, this is really hard for me to admit. I used to be a night owl, I used to be able to stay up very, very late, but now that I am in a workforce where I have to get up at like 6:15 in the morning regularly, and now that I drink coffee regularly, it's more towards morning.
Okay. All right. Pet peeve.
Oh, there are so many.
Maybe I should rephrase. Biggest pet peeve.
I don't know if I could say just one. So you will know this, being from Minnesota. We have a very, very high standard for politeness.
Oh.
And translates a lot when you go to other places. And so obviously, like, there's a certain amount of, cultural differences, and you work with those and things like that.
Yes.
It bothers me when, for example, you're walking down the street, and I don't know why it bothers me. It's just like that, like, ingrained cultural niceness. But like, you're walking down the street and you come to both of you are coming at the same way.
Yep.
I always say, "Excuse me," and this person almost never does, and I'm like, ugh. Neither of us are at fault, but all you have to do is be like, "Excuse me."
Funny. Very funny. Okay. Asking this question because I am sincerely curious. What's your favorite hotel you've stayed in?
Okay. So it's a toss-up. I actually usually stay at Airbnbs now, if possible.
Okay.
But the two hotels that I've really liked are pretty different, but both really, really cool. So one was in Santa Monica, and it's set up like almost like a bed and breakfast, but it's not. It doesn't have like that romantic connotation or things like that. But it's in a house, and there are a set number of rooms, maybe like 15. And this is like a mini suite. So you go up to your apartment, and it's like the first room is the open front room with a fireplace and a writing desk and these cushy chairs and cookies. And then you go into the bedroom, and it's this like really nice bed, and then this gigantic jacuzzi tub. And so I just take a bath every night. And then the bath. So that was one.
Okay.
And then the other one is a very posh hotel in France, in Paris, pretty close to the UNESCO headquarters.
Okay.
And it was absolutely gorgeous. It was like streamlined and bright and lovely, and places I can't afford to stay. Scary.
If you could work remotely from anywhere, where would it be?
I actually would not. So I realized this in the last year or so. We're pretty flexible where I work. You can work from home generally, especially if you're we have a lot of people who have appointments, or you need to get work done, or everyone else is, or whatever the reason would be. I'm a lot less productive. Not because I'm not engaged in the work or things like that. It's mostly because so much of what I do is related to being around people or working with people. And I draw on the energy of other people so much when I work that I really work so much better in person.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
None.
Lead or collaborate?
Collaborate.
If you were...
Interesting. I totally would have said lead in the past. Huh.
That's why I asked these questions, because I was just very curious. Because it's been a while. I'll just say that.
Okay. Huh. That actually surprises me. Yay. Okay.
Yay.
Huh.
Surprises are good. If you were given $500, what would you do with it?
Wow. I think it really depends on the circumstances at the time. It probably would end up getting dispersed across a multitude of ways. So,
okay.
That's a horrible answer. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Movie or live theater?
It's so hard because I really want to say live theater, and again, Minnesota.
Yeah.
It's the second best theater in the country, and so it's hard to find really good theater when you're not, there or New York or whatever.
Yeah.
So theater, but like exceptional theater. People apparently. Otherwise, movie.
And and favorite season?
I like autumn. It's just beautiful.
Okay. I thought you would say
Yeah.
something else. But your answer's okay. I thought you would say summer. I really thought you would say summer.
I don't mind summer, but I tend to not like how hot it gets in DC for 3 years, where you don't ever want to walk outside because you will melt. Not summer.
So we talked about how we weren't quite sure how to ask this question. So I'm just going to ask it in the format that I sent it to you in. And it's a burning question on my end because I think I get what you do, but I'm still confused as to what you do. So,
used to this.
What do you do as a security community manager? And before you answer, within both front and back end developers, to keep the online activity of where you work super safe on the internet, especially considering who the clients are of where you work. So am I even ballpark semi-correct with that assumption?
Yeah, I think so. So the easiest way to talk about it is I build relationships. So the relationships are really meant to have a halo effect of getting people to do what you want, quite frankly.
Okay.
So if you think about it, you can do security in a couple of different ways. So you could do security from a compliance standpoint where you're like, here, take this training because you're required to take this training because you work for this company. And it can be really boring, and it can be a 30-minute, an hour-long, whatever it would be, online thing where you're like, oh, God, kill me. Or you can be like, hey, so we have this training. You're going to have to take it, but we're going to make it fun for you. Okay. And so you can connect with people on it. You can make it more interesting. You can take their feedback and actually listen to them and then incorporate that to make it even better. You can figure out ways to get people maybe not excited about security, but thinking about it top of mind, as opposed to I did this thing and now it's completely out of my brain because it was awful. And so that's part of it. The other part of it is that it's focused around building partnerships and collaborating with other people. And the more that you're willing to collaborate with other people, which is why I said collaborate instead of lead, even though real leadership is collaboration, the more that you collaborate with other people, the more that they're willing to work with you to reach your end goals as well. So it becomes this mutually agreed upon joint initiative more often than not. So really, my role is around building relationships with developers and engineers, or with the security team here that I sit on, or with people out of the security industry, or with our customers, or whatever it would be. Building relationships with those people in order to educate them about security, to provide knowledge, to hear what they have to say, to incentivize them to care, motivate them, get them excited, help their morale. I mean, it could be a whole bunch of different end goals, but the whole goal of it, for me at least, is building relationships with people.
Your resume isn't exactly typical, but I mean that in a good way. And you've worked for large and notable companies, both locally in Minnesota and then also nationally too. How did you navigate your way into the industry that you are currently in?
Societally trained woman in me would say luck, because we always want to undervalue ourselves, because that's what we've been trained to do. But also, I have friends who work in the tech industry in a variety of ways. And so when I moved, for background, I moved from nonprofits into tech, for the most part. Obviously, I also worked for academics. I worked in a stint in an agency or two along the way, etc. But I really was drawn to a lot of what tech had to offer. So they have a really interesting culture, and they have really interesting dynamics that I was interested in exploring based on what I'd seen from other people that I knew. And so I was living in DC, knowing that I wanted to work on the West Coast, probably in San Francisco area, and knowing that I wanted to move from nonprofit to tech, which is not easy as a non-technical person. So really started to focus in on how do I sell myself as a non-technical person who adds value. And I had a really great conversation with somebody who had been working in nonprofits and had made a career switch. And she had the best advice ever, which is you're currently, the way that your resume reads is you are currently trying to go for both nonprofits as a backup and tech as a risky option, and you need to pick one because you're ineffective at both. And she was totally right. And so I was like, well, either you do it or you don't, so I might as well just do it. So I decided to focus 100% on nonprofit or on tech, and created a hybrid resume, also at her suggestion. And so instead of a traditional resume, which is, work experience and education, and it's really just bullet points of what you do, the main components of your job. A hybrid resume is really great for career changers. I would honestly never try to change careers without a hybrid resume. All of my key qualifications, and they're all related to the industry or the job that you want. So like my community manager resume is like community, project management, communications. And then it's bullet points of the key tasks that I've done that relate to that specifically. And then that's maybe like 2/3 of the first page. And then you go in work experience and the most amount of your time on. It's the projects that you do that you've spent enough time on, maybe not all your time, that relate to that job. And so then it's like shortened bullets of like, I did this, and this is a bullet point for like, this is a project I worked on, this is something I achieved, etc. And then of course education is thrown in there and stuff as well, but it's very broken up. It's very much highlighting all of your skills and qualifications. Okay. And then saying, here, by the way, is my experience that supports this. I managed to get an interview at the company I'm at now, and it was a whirlwind kind of thing. It was like, hey, can you fill out this questionnaire? And 2 days later, it was like, great, we want to schedule a phone interview with you. And then a day later, it was like, hey, we want to schedule 6 back-to-back Google Hangout interviews with you because we're not going to fly you out like we normally would. I was like, okay, great. What it came down to is I got lucky in the sense that my team really highly valued diverse backgrounds. I was able to very clearly articulate a story. And it's all about storytelling in this industry, especially in communications, as you know.
Yes.
Articulate how volunteer coordination and public relations and office management and sexual health education all kind of wove together into this overall idea of community management. And be able to say, here are all of the areas that nonprofits actually really align to tech. And they're really similar. It's a whole other conversation, but nonprofits and startups in particular are very, very aligned in the way that they operate. And they liked it. So I got very lucky that they decided to give me a chance.
That makes actually a lot of sense. The startup and the nonprofit,
right? I know.
And how they're paralleled. That makes a lot of sense.
Very mission oriented. They're both all hands on deck, doing whatever you need to do in the moment. They're both very fast paced. Less so nonprofits, but when they need to be, they're very fast paced. Otherwise, they're just nothing. They're like. They're both under resourced. There are a lot of parallels.
Yes, there are. Wow. You're very smart, both street and book smart, which honestly is super hard to find. So yes, take the compliment. A couple of things here, because I want to toot your horn for you a little bit here, because your background is it's impressive. I'm just going to say it up front. You got into Georgetown, Washington State University for your master's degree in women's studies, and you graduated with Summa Cum Laude. While there, you were a graduate teaching assistant. Impressive. I'm sincerely curious to know what that experience was like. And P.S. for anybody that is listening and not necessarily watching, the acceptance rate for Georgetown University, as of I believe it's last year, currently 40%. What? So again, you're a smart cookie. So let's talk about what that experience is like being a graduate teaching assistant.
Thank you first. That's very sweet. I have to clarify, not really that I want to, because I don't think they necessarily deserve it, but it was George Washington. Georgetown is their rival.
Okay.
Sorry. I have many feelings about my now alma mater. Not going to say that that was begrudging. So I think academia in and of itself is really interesting.
Okay.
I have always been drawn to learning. I've always sought out learning more, and it was never a question that I would go to college. I never expected to go to grad school. In fact, in college, I actively told people I would not go to grad school and then laughed at them when they were studying for their GREs like a total jerk.
Okay.
And then slowly, do you ever have it where you have an idea that sits in the back of your head and it just gets louder and louder until you have to listen to it?
Yeah.
So that's what this became. I tried to, so the idea was that I wanted to go back for women's studies. I tried to manipulate that somewhat so that I was more marketable in academia by going for English with an emphasis in women's studies. And that didn't work for a variety of reasons. And then in 2012, I decided to try again specifically for women's studies.
Okay.
I have absolutely amazing colleagues from that program who went straight from undergraduate into graduate degrees, and they are fantastic. And what I'm about to say has absolutely nothing to do with their character or their merit or their skills. They're brilliant people. I would never have gotten in if I hadn't waited and had work experience. I would always value doing that first. Not only because it helps kind of guide you into what you might want to study and where you want to be, but I was really worried coming in because I had a 6-year gap between my undergraduate and my graduate degree. And I was really, really worried that I wouldn't be able to keep up. I knew that the quality of my work had to be fantastic.
Yes.
And I actually found that I was far more analytical and critical in my writing than I had ever been before because I had all that work experience in the past.
Okay.
Which is not to say, like I said, that my colleagues in the program were not those things. They were brilliant people who wrote really well, but I knew for myself I needed the experience. And it ended up being absolutely the right thing. And so I also, through all of that, needed to do more research and talk to more people. And so I had called professors and programs that I'd identified as people I'd be interested in talking to based on their research. I analyzed different types of programs to figure out which schools I was interested in, et cetera, et cetera. And I ended up at George Washington University and actually wasn't going to be teaching, even though I had submitted for it. They only had one position. They had offered it to somebody else. And I decided to accept regardless, knowing that that would be an incredible amount of debt that I'd be taking on.
Yes.
I got incredibly lucky that they got extra funding and offered another position, and they offered it to me. So there were 2 of us that year. Huge, because that covers all of your debt. They pay for your schooling.
Wow.
It was one of the best jobs I've ever had. The reason that I started this by saying academia is really interesting is because teaching is probably the most impactful, amazing job I could ever hope to have. It's about 15% of what you do as a professor. So myself as a teaching assistant, I did a lot more of it, but if I had kept going and gotten a PhD and decided to go into academia, it would have been maybe 15%. And the rest would have been research and writing and doing my own projects and then studying and creating curriculum. And all of that kind of sucks, actually. Academia is a really rough place. And particularly the institution that I ended up going to is incredibly corporate and capitalistic. And I got very disillusioned with academia when I was there. I absolutely value higher education. I think everybody should have the option to do it in a low cost and affordable way. And it's really difficult right now in the state of affairs and our current political climate, educational climate, et cetera, to be able to do that. That being said, the people that I got to work with were the most amazing, talented young minds out there, and they are fantastic people some of whom I'm still in touch with today, and that is an experience you can't replicate, I think. So it was fantastic. It was highly enriching. It actually made a lot of the work that I was doing in my studies more enjoyable as a result. And the reason that when you said teacher or student earlier, I said both, is that as a teacher, you should be learning from your students. And if you're not, then you're probably too arrogant to teach.
That actually leads well into this next question, which is, who are your mentors?
I have a lot of them. I know most people say this, but my parents are definitely up there. So all of my parents, I say all because I have 3, have taught me in different ways. My mom has been a huge lead in terms of passion and drive and dedication. My dad has been a huge lead in terms of kind of narrowing in on what you want and how to achieve it, and going for your dreams and striving for more and striving to be better and improve yourself. And my stepmom, my second mom, has been really impactful in terms of like thinking about who you are and your skills and where you fit in the world and where you can carve out a place for yourself and really maximize yourself. So they're up there. A lot of the women who I've worked with along the way in very subtle ways have been influential. So some of the people I've worked with here at my current company are incredibly influential. Certainly a lot of the people that I worked with while I was doing my degree were really impactful. And then there are people who I think are impactful in negative ways, but in ways that are really good for growth. So like, I had a very bad experience at a nonprofit that I worked at because the leadership wasn't strong. They were toxic in a lot of ways, and it teaches you how to be a leader in other ways, or what you don't want in a leader, or how you would lead differently. And so it's not mentor per se, but it's still really important for growth.
Okay.
I'm still debating mentorship in terms of who should be that, who qualifies. Does it have to be formalized? Does it not? I don't know. It's an interesting topic.
Do you find yourself auditing your part of the process for you?
Not usually, although maybe it should be. I think for me it's more knowing when certain relationships come up that they are ones you can learn from, and trying to figure out the best way to do that works for both parties. I don't think that they necessarily are a formalized process or ones that happen on a timeline for me. They're more organic than that, I think.
Okay. That makes sense why you say that, based on the like where you've been, the experience you've had, what's the word I'm looking for? Not culture experience, but what's that word I'm looking for? Where you basically you're gauging different cultures in some of the work that you've done. Like you went to Europe a lot for one of your jobs. Now you're more stationed in one place for where you work now, but you still do travel just a little bit. So dipping into different cultures is basically what I'm trying to say. So, because not a lot of people that I know of, which I don't believe that this is universal at all, but I don't know a lot of people that have a lot of, that have dipped their toes into different cultural experiences. You are the exception for that. So, yeah.
You need to do that to do this work, though. Like you need to, or at least be willing to explore. Not necessarily that you need to work in different places, but that you should at least have conversations with people in different places.
Yes.
Because otherwise, you work at a place for a while, and then you try to go to another place, and it's just a complete culture shock.
Yes.
Actually, if you're doing this work, you have to know it sure takes a long time. And two, you need to know how to do it fluidly, because it takes a long time. So you have to start where they're starting. And if you can't identify where they're starting, you can't build the relationships that gets people to whatever point you're hoping to get them to, or even start to.
This goes back to kind of the whole you're really smart thing, which is very true. And you used to not be a morning person, so this question is kind of a twist on everything, so to speak. So the question is, really smart people seemingly have crazy morning routines that I can actually get behind. So my question is, what is yours?
So I don't think that I would normally have this routine, but I have a feline friend who forces me to have this routine.
Yes.
So he sleeps with me every night, and then sometime between 1 and 5, he wakes me up, and I kick him out. And he knows that I won't open the door until I wake up. But when I wake up, then we go and play for a little bit.
Okay.
Before I leave for the day.
Yes.
And so he'll be somewhat patient, but dear God, if we don't play for at least 30 seconds in the morning, he is a terror. So my crazy morning ritual is like literally playing with my cat for like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, whatever it is. Like, he needs his time. Dear God, he needs a friend.
You should get him. What's your cat's name?
Simba.
Simba. Okay. I know one other person who's named their cat Simba.
He has 3 legs, so I figured he needed like a strong lion name.
That's right. I remember seeing pictures of Simba. Yeah, you rescued him. He's an adoptee. Or
He's an adopter, yeah.
Yeah. Adoptee. Yeah.
Adoptee, yeah.
I hear a lot of positive things about the culture of where you work, and I'm going to use the word ohana to describe that. What things does the company do that speaks volumes and keeps the competition really competitive from that sense?
So we focus a lot on a lot of different values, but I think one of the ones that speaks a lot to the people that I work with the most is they have a huge emphasis on giving back. Actually, a big reason why I came here too is, moving from nonprofits to tech, I wanted something that still was mission oriented.
Yes.
And this is. So there's a huge emphasis on going out and volunteering in the community, on donating, on giving your time, etc. And it's a really great model for how you can give back while still kind of working in a corporate landscape. I think at the same time, they have an emphasis on fun. And so some of my job is related to really traditional employee morale, although it definitely is involved in that, but how people fit in our team, how people feel like they're a part of something. And it's a rarity to have that, and I think it's really great that our leadership values that. And so having the opportunity to get to work on some of that, I think is really important. So I think those 2 things in particular are the things that people don't talk about as much because you don't think of them. But when you ask people internally here what their favorite things are, those always come up.
Good to know, because I was very curious about that. Because it is, it's a needle in a haystack, not necessarily to find, but to become a part of, because unless you're offered the opportunity, you can't become part of that opportunity. And I think it's something that I don't want to say our generation, but it's essentially that's what it is. Our generation is very thirsty for that type of community.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you're a podcast listener, but if you are, what are some podcasts that you're currently listening to, or do you have a list of podcasts that you want to listen to?
So I'm sadly not a podcaster.
Not a podcaster? Well, I'm not a podcaster either, but I do have my list of podcasts I like to listen to.
So part of the reason is that I am incredibly visual, and so this isn't fair, because podcasts are not like books, but like I can't absorb books in the same way. I get too distracted and I just don't absorb the content because I don't learn auditorily. That being said, I came across a podcast today that I even thought to myself, like, oh, if I listen to podcasts, I would probably do this.
Okay.
Sounds really interesting. So this disclaimer, I have not heard it. I have no idea what the content is, other than...
You cut out just a little bit there.
Oh, it's called Season of the Bitch.
Okay.
It's really broad podcast where they talk about news and feminism and books and political landscape and culture, and it sounds great. Sounds great.
Okay.
All you podcast listeners, go check it out.
Okay.
Report back. Convince me that I should listen to podcasts.
What is something you are absolutely unapologetic about? And I ask that because I know you stand for feminism. And yet again, if you're listening, no, it is not a dirty word. So what are you unapologetic about?
Feminism. Yeah, so a lot of social justice, equality, social justice ideas, and that extends beyond what people I think, and rightfully so in many contexts, think of feminism as purely about women. But really, feminism is about all of the things that impact women, which impact all of the other underserved populations just as much, and the populations that are, let's say, mainstream or traditional. So I care a lot about the masculinity of a white man just as much as I do about the issues that a black woman might face, for instance. And they're all tied together. So when I say that I'm unapologetically feminist, which is quite a mouthful now that I've said that, it's with that very complex, nuanced perspective. So it's not mainstream white feminism per se. I'm also unapologetic about my pretension about coffee. Not gonna lie. I have a rating system. So clearly I am pretentious, and I've come to terms with that a long time.
Can you send me your grading system, because my interest has been piqued and I'm sincerely interested now?
It's super easy. I have my own preferences that I put in there, but it's literally like, one is like the places that you will always seek out and you will get even if you have to go out of your way.
Okay.
2 is quality, they're good.
Okay.
3 is like, I might get it if I really want a coffee, but it's nothing amazing.
Okay.
4 is like, I'm probably going to avoid this if it's around. I don't care if I want coffee or not. It's not hurt.
Okay.
Yep. It's totally arbitrary. I don't know why 1 is the best, even though that's the lowest number. Just came to my head one day.
I know you love events, and being where you work at, what's an event coming up in 2018 that's this year now, because I obviously wrote these questions last year technically. What's an event that's coming up that you're allowed to publicly talk about that you're super excited about?
Last year, I was lucky enough to be selected for presenting at the SANS Security Awareness Summit. So SANS is an organization that's focused around security training, and it can be a whole range of types of training. So it could be very technical for security engineers. It could be security awareness, like the one I did, things like that. Mm-hmm. So we went in August to Nashville, where it was being hosted and presented on Security Champions, which is essentially it's a training program that focuses on connecting with people in the community as well.
Okay.
And so we got invited to go overseas to London to do a expanded workshop instead of a panel presentation on Security Champions for the European Security Awareness Summit. And that went even better. So we're really excited that we are now asked to come back to the American version again in August, this time in Charleston, for an even longer Security Champions workshop. So we're really excited, and I'm super thrilled to get to work with these folks because they are really smart, super passionate, really excited. Like, they're just fantastic to work around.
Bragging rights time. So what was your proudest accomplishment in 2017 that maybe you weren't 100% certain was going to happen?
Honestly, I wasn't sure that trip to London was going to happen. So I knew that the one in August would happen for the American Summit. It was one that had been on the books for quite a while. I had honestly worked quite a while to build that relationship, and so I didn't expect it to get the immediate positive response that it got when we submitted our application, but I was pretty sure that it had a chance.
Okay.
Just based on what I knew about both the chairman, about the conference itself, the content, etc. I didn't know if London would happen. It's a much more expensive trip. It is a very different audience. It was a different kind of presentation. We had 4 people at the American one. It got dropped down to 2, both due to the 2 people just couldn't join.
Okay.
So it was 2 of us, which had actually ended up, I think, working better for the workshop version of it because it was myself with a program that I'd been running and then my counterpart with a program that she was building. And so it was a great combination of perspectives. But there were a lot of factors that I honestly wasn't sure it would happen. And I really wanted it to happen. But I wasn't positive. And so it was collaborating with a lot of people to try to figure out how to make it work, how to get there, how to connect with people while I was there to maximize my time. Obviously working with my co-presenter to make it a really dynamic presentation, building connections after the fact, all of it. So I'm really glad it came together, but I'm really excited that it worked out, that the workshop was really well received. The content is quality, I think, based on the work that we've done. And I'm really excited to see how we're going to expand it moving forward. So.
All right, well, we'll hang up here and then we'll chat offline afterwards.
That sounds great.
Thanks for your time, Cassie. It was awesome.